Dr. Hyunwoo stepped into the medical bay with curiosity bright in his eyes. The Galactic Coalition medical station floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure that housed thousands of alien species. 6 months had passed since humanity made first contact with the greater galaxy, and now every human needed medical clearance before working among the stars. The medical bay looked nothing like hospitals on Earth. Soft purple light filled the room, and the air smelled sweet, like flowers. Strange instruments hung from the ceiling on flexible arms, each one designed for species Hyunwoo had only seen in videos. A tall creature entered through the far door. Trilix stood nearly 8 feet tall, with a body that reminded Hyunwoo of a praying mantis. Green chitin covered the alien physician from head to foot, gleaming under the purple lights. 4 arms moved with precise grace as Trilix prepared the scanning equipment. "Welcome, Dr. Hyunwoo," Trilix said through a translation device. The voice came out musical and clicking. "Please, position yourself in the scanning field. This procedure is standard for all new coalition members." Hyunwoo stepped onto a raised platform in the center of the room. He wore simple clothes as instructed, comfortable in the warm temperature the station maintained. The scanning field activated with a soft hum, and Hyunwoo felt nothing, as invisible waves passed through his body. Trilix watched the display screen, manipulating controls with 2 of its 4 hands. The alien physician's movements were smooth and professional, exactly what Hyunwoo expected from a medical expert with 30 years of experience. Then, Trilix went completely still. The clicking sounds that came from the alien's throat changed pitch dramatically. The display screen showed an image of Hyunwoo's body, rendered in 3 dimensions with perfect clarity. Inside the translucent outline of flesh and organs, white structures branched and connected throughout his entire form. "Emergency," Trilix said, voice tight with something that sounded like panic. "Medical emergency. I am calling for assistance immediately." "What? I feel fine," Hyunwoo said, confused. He tried to step off the platform, but Trilix raised one sharp-clawed hand. "Do not move. You have massive parasitic infestation. The organisms have created calcium deposits throughout your entire body structure. I count over 200 individual bones. This should have killed you weeks ago." Hyunwoo's confusion transformed into understanding, then into the urge to laugh. He held it back, recognizing that Trilix was genuinely frightened for him. "Those aren't parasites," Hyunwoo said gently. "That's my skeleton. All humans have them." 3 more alien physicians rushed into the medical bay. One looked like a floating jellyfish filled with glowing blue liquid. Another resembled a thick serpent covered in silver scales. The third seemed to be made entirely of crystalline structures that chimed softly when it moved. All 3 stopped and stared at the display screen, showing Hyunwoo's internal structure. "Impossible," the jellyfish creature said in a burbling voice. "Rigid calcium frameworks grow inside the body? The organs should be punctured. The muscles should be unable to function. This cannot be real." "I assure you it's real," Hyunwoo said. He raised his arm and wiggled his fingers. "See? The bones provide structure. They're covered in muscles and tissue. It's how humans are built." The crystalline physician made a sound like breaking glass. "All humans have these internal weapons?" "Weapons? No. They're not weapons. They're support structures. Like how you have chitin on the outside, Trilix, we have calcium structures on the inside." Trilix touched its own chest with one claw, tapping the hard external shell. "My protection is external. It makes sense. Armor faces outward to stop danger. Your species grows rigid spears inside soft flesh. This is madness." The serpent physician slithered closer to examine the display more carefully. Its tongue flicked out, tasting the air. "How do you move? These structures are inflexible. They should lock your joints in place." "They connect at joints," Hyunwoo explained, trying to keep his voice patient and educational. "The bones themselves don't bend much. But where they meet, we have cartilage and ligaments that allow movement. It's actually very efficient. The medical team exchanged looks that Hyunwoo couldn't quite interpret across species barriers. The jellyfish creature pulsed with darker blue colors, which the translation device labeled as distress. I must report this to the Coalition Medical Council, Trilix said. This physiology represents something we have never encountered. Internal mineralized structures of this density should be impossible in a living organism of your size. My species has been living with skeletons for millions of years, Hyunwoo said, a bit of defensiveness creeping into his tone. We evolved this way. It works perfectly fine, but the weight, the crystalline physician chimed. These calcium deposits must be incredibly heavy. How do you support such mass? Undosable. Undosable. C hasp. Undosable. That's exactly what they help us do. They support us. The bones are strong but relatively light. They're not solid calcium all the way through. They have marrow inside, which is actually important for our immune system and blood production. This statement caused all 4 alien physicians to make sounds of alarm simultaneously. The translation device struggled to keep up with the overlapping expressions of shock and disbelief. Your structural supports also produce defensive biological components? The serpent physician said. This is beyond unusual. This is fundamentally wrong according to all known principles of anatomy. The door to the medical bay opened again, and a young woman entered wearing the crisp uniform of the Human Diplomatic Corps. Ji-won took in the scene quickly, her professional training evident in her calm expression. Is there a problem? Ji-won asked, directing her question to Hyunwoo while keeping her attention on the agitated alien physicians. They're upset about my skeleton, Hyunwoo said with a slight smile. About all human skeletons, actually. Ji-won nodded slowly. I see. I suppose we should have anticipated this reaction. I'll contact Ambassador Do-yeon. We may need to arrange an educational presentation about human anatomy for the Coalition Medical Council. Trilix turned to face Ji-won fully. You also have these internal calcium weapons? They're not weapons, Ji-won said firmly but politely. And yes, all humans have endoskeletons. It's completely normal for our species. We're not dangerous because of our bones. The jellyfish physician pulsed again, colors shifting through several shades. This will cause significant concern among coalition members. Many species will find this physiology deeply disturbing. Some may consider humans a biological threat. Hyunwoo and Ji-won exchanged glances. The excitement of joining the galactic community suddenly felt more complicated. Neither of them had expected that something as basic as their skeletons would cause such a strong reaction. The medical bay fell quiet, except for the soft humming of equipment. On the display screen, the image of Hyunwoo's skeleton continued to rotate slowly. White bones stark against the translucent outline of his body. To him, it looked completely ordinary. To the alien physicians surrounding him, it looked like something from a nightmare. I think, Ji-won said carefully, we have a lot of explaining to do. The Coalition Science Academy occupied an entire section of the massive space station. Its halls curved along the outer ring, providing artificial gravity through rotation. Dr. Soo-jin walked those halls now, heading toward the largest auditorium in the facility. 3 days had passed since Hyunwoo's medical scan, and word of human skeletal structure had spread throughout the coalition like fire. The emergency xenobiology conference had been called with unprecedented speed. Representatives from 47 different species waited inside the auditorium, filling seats designed for wildly different body types. Some sat, some floated, some coiled on specially designed platforms. All of them wanted answers about the humans and their internal calcium frameworks. Soo-jin carried a data tablet containing her presentation. She specialized in biomechanics, studying how living things moved and supported their bodies. For 15 years, she had researched Earth species, never imagining her expertise would one day be needed to defend humanity's right to exist among the stars. The auditorium doors opened with a soft hiss. Conversation died as Soo-jin entered. Hundreds of eyes, some familiar, and many utterly alien, fixed on her. She walked to the central platform with steady confidence, even though her heart hammered in her chest. "Thank you for gathering on such short notice," Sujin began, her voice amplified through the translation system. "I understand that human skeletal structure has caused concern. I'm here to explain how and why our endoskeletons work." A massive creature near the front raised one of its 6 legs. The being looked like a cross between a crab and a boulder, covered entirely in thick, rock-like armor. "Explain first why you would evolve such a dangerous internal structure." "External protection makes sense. Internal weapons do not." "They're not weapons," Sujin said, keeping her tone educational rather than defensive. "May I demonstrate?" She activated her tablet, and a holographic image appeared above the platform. It showed a simplified human skeleton in 3 dimensions, slowly rotating so everyone could see it clearly. This is the human skeletal system. It consists of 206 individual bones in an adult, though babies are born with more that fuse together as they grow. These bones serve multiple purposes. They provide structural support, protect vital organs, enable movement through muscle attachment points, produce blood cells, and store essential minerals. A flowing, semi-transparent creature that looked like living water raised a pseudopod. "The internal placement is what disturbs us. How do these rigid structures not damage your soft tissues during movement?" Sujin smiled. "Excellent question. The bones don't move against soft tissue directly. They're covered in periosteum, a membrane rich in nerves and blood vessels. Where bones meet at joints, we have cartilage that prevents friction and absorbs shock. Ligaments hold bones together while allowing controlled movement. It's an integrated system that evolved over millions of years." She changed the holographic display to show a close-up of a human knee joint. The assembled scientists leaned forward, fascinated, despite their concerns. Council head Plixar spoke from a specialized floating tank. The gelatinous being had no solid structures at all, maintaining form through internal pressure and specialized cells. This still does not address the fundamental impossibility. You claim these bones support your weight, yet they exist inside flesh that should collapse around them. Our models suggest this configuration would fail immediately under Earth's gravity. "Your models assume passive support," Sujin responded. "Human bones aren't just passive pillars. They're active, living tissue. They respond to stress by becoming stronger in areas where force is regularly applied. They're also surprisingly flexible. They can bend slightly without breaking, which helps absorb impact." She pulled up another display. This one, showing stress patterns in a human femur. During walking, colors shifted across the bone's surface, indicating areas of compression and tension. "Let me show you something more dramatic," Sujin said. She gestured to the side of the auditorium, where a door opened. Tae-young entered, wearing shorts and a sleeveless shirt that left his arms and legs exposed. He was a human engineer, assigned to the station, and he had volunteered for this demonstration. "This is Tae-young. He's going to demonstrate human skeletal resilience." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Several species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Tae-young walked to the center of the platform, waved casually to the crowd, then simply let himself fall backward. He hit the platform floor with a solid thump that made several aliens cry out in alarm. Tae-young immediately rolled to his feet, smiling. "See? I'm fine." A small alien that looked like a collection of geometric shapes vibrated with distress. "That impact would have shattered my crystalline matrix. You fell with your full weight onto that rigid surface." "My skeleton absorbed and distributed the impact," Tae-young explained. He jumped up and down several times on the platform. "The bones in my legs are incredibly strong in compression. They're designed to handle forces much greater than my body weight." Sujin pulled up data showing the impact forces. A human femur, the thigh bone, can support approximately 30 times the body weight of an average human before fracturing. Our bones are engineered by evolution to handle extreme stress. "Engineered," Plixar said slowly. "You speak as if these structures were designed as weapons." "No," Sujin said firmly. engineered by evolution, not by intent. Earth is what we call a high-gravity death world. It's dangerous, with predators, environmental hazards, and constant physical challenges. Species that survived needed robust support structures. For humans and many Earth species, internal skeletons provided advantages that external shells didn't. She changed the display again, now showing comparison charts. External armor is excellent for protection, but it limits growth and flexibility. Species with exoskeletons must molt, leaving them vulnerable. Internal skeletons allow continuous growth and repair. Without that weakness, repair? The crystalline scientist made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. These structures can repair themselves? Havli, this repair themselves. Of course, Sujin said. Broken bones heal. The body grows new bone tissue to bridge fractures. It takes several weeks. But yes, our skeletons self-repair. The auditorium erupted in alarmed conversation. The translation system struggled to keep up, as dozens of species expressed shock, fear, and disbelief simultaneously. A tall, thin alien, with skin like polished metal, stood up. You're telling this assembly that humans grow regenerating calcium weapons inside their bodies? Structures that can withstand 30 times their body weight and repair themselves when damaged? And you expect us to believe this isn't threatening? They're not weapons, Taeyang said, frustration clear in his voice. I can't remove my bones and attack someone with them. They're internal. They're part of me. I need them to live, but you could use them offensively, the metallic alien pressed. Your rigid structures allow you to strike with greater force than soft-bodied species could manage. Sujin held up her hands, asking for calm. Yes, our skeletons make us durable and allow us to deliver stronger physical strikes than some species. But many coalition species have natural advantages humans don't possess. Some of you have armor, venom, the ability to survive in vacuum, or natural weapons far more dangerous than anything a human could do with bare hands. Plixar's gelatinous form rippled in the floating tank. The concern is not just individual threat. It's the implication. If humans evolved such structures naturally, what else might their death world have created? What other biological surprises exist in your species? Many, Sujin admitted honestly. Humans have numerous adaptations for survival. Our skeletal system is just one of them. But adaptation doesn't equal aggression. We came to the coalition in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation. A being made of what looked like flowing sand spoke in a voice like desert wind. Some of us believe peace. Others believe humans should be quarantined until we understand the full extent of your biological capabilities. The Velen Consortium has formally proposed restricting human travel throughout coalition space. Sujin felt her stomach drop. Quarantine. The word meant isolation. Meant everything humanity had hoped for from the stars being locked away behind fear and misunderstanding. Please, she said quietly. And the auditorium grew still. Don't judge us by our biology alone. Judge us by our actions, our intentions, our desire to be part of something greater than ourselves. Yes, we have skeletons. Yes, we're durable. But we're also explorers, scientists, artists, dreamers. We're people who want to share the universe with you. The silence stretched long. Finally, Plixar spoke again. The Council will consider all information presented today. But understand, Dr. Sujin, that trust is not given freely in the coalition. It must be earned. Your species will need to prove that your physical capabilities do not make you a danger to others. Sujin nodded slowly. Behind her, Taeyang stood quietly, his skeleton invisible beneath his skin but suddenly feeling like a burden instead of a gift from evolution. The conference continued for hours, but Sujin already knew the outcome would be uncertain. Humanity had joined the galactic community, but now they would have to fight to remain part of it. The border defense station hung in space near the edge of Coalition territory, a military outpost designed to protect against raiders from the lawless regions beyond. Security Officer Gang Min checked the station's sensor displays with practiced efficiency. 3 months had passed since the emergency xenobiology conference, and humans remained under scrutiny throughout Coalition space. His posting here was partly assignment, partly a test of human reliability. Beside him, diplomatic guard Yuna reviewed security protocols on her own terminal. She had been assigned to protect Ambassador Du Yun, but the ambassador remained on the central station while Yuna gained experience working alongside Coalition security forces. Quiet shift, Yuna commented, her eyes never leaving her screen despite the casual tone. Too quiet, Gangmin replied. His instincts, honed through years of security work on Earth, told him something felt wrong. The usual traffic through this sector had disappeared over the past hour. No trade ships, no patrol vessels, nothing. The alarm proved his instincts correct. Red lights flooded the security center as sensors detected multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Gangmin's display showed 15 vessels, all broadcasting identification codes associated with the Krill marches, a collection of pirate groups that raided Coalition border stations for supplies and technology. All personnel to defensive positions, the station commander announced over the communication system. The commander was a Thex, a species with thick armored plates covering their body like overlapping shields. This is not a drill. Pirates are attacking in force. Gangmin and Yuna grabbed their equipment and ran for the defensive positions. The station's corridors filled with Coalition security personnel, rushing to their assigned posts. Most wore environmental suits designed for their specific physiologies. Gangmin and Yuna wore lighter armor, human-designed, that the Coalition had reluctantly approved. They reached their assigned corridor just as the first explosion rocked the station. The pirates had breached the outer hull somewhere in the cargo section, emergency bulkheads sealed automatically. But Gang Min knew the station's defenses wouldn't hold forever against a determined assault. 3 Thex security officers took positions behind reinforced barriers in the corridor. Their thick armor made them look like walking tanks, and they carried heavy weapons designed to punch through ship hulls. Gang Min and Yuna took positions on the flanks, their lighter armor allowing greater mobility. Humans should fall back to secondary positions, one of the Thex officers said through the translation system. You lack proper protection. You will be killed. We're staying, Gangmin said simply. He checked his weapon, a projectile firearm that humans preferred over the energy weapons common in Coalition forces. Yuna did the same, her movements efficient and calm. The Thex officer started to argue, but the pirates burst through the far end of the corridor. They came in fast and aggressive, a mixed group from several species united by greed and violence. The pirates wore mismatched armor and carried weapons looted from 100 different worlds. They fired as they advanced, energy bolts scorching the walls and barriers. The Thex officers returned fire with their heavy weapons. The corridor filled with the sound of energy discharges and the smell of melting metal. 1 pirate went down immediately. Armor melted through by a direct hit. 2 more fell back, wounded. But more pirates kept coming. An energy bolt hit one of the Thex officers square in the chest. The thick armor cracked with a sound like breaking stone. The officer cried out and collapsed backward, vital organs exposed through the fracture in his protective shell. His companions dragged him back, but he was clearly out of the fight. They're too many, another Thex officer shouted. Fall back to secondary positions. We cannot hold here. Gangmin saw the tactical situation clearly. If they fell back now, the pirates would control this corridor and access the station's main power systems. Once they had power, they could override security protocols throughout the entire station. No, Gangmin said. He stepped out from behind his barrier and advanced toward the pirates, firing controlled bursts from his weapon. Are you insane? Yuna shouted, but she was already moving to follow him. Years of training together meant she understood his thinking, without explanation. The pirates focused their fire on the 2 humans advancing toward them, Energy bolts struck Gangmin 3 times in rapid succession. The impacts burned through his light armor and into his flesh. Pain exploded across his chest and shoulder. Gangmin stumbled but kept moving forward. His ribs had cracked from the impacts, but they held. His sternum protected his heart and lungs from the worst of the burns. The pain was incredible, but his skeleton had absorbed and distributed the energy enough that he remained functional. Yuna took 2 hits to her legs, energy melting through armor and burning deep into muscle. She went down on one knee, then forced herself back up. Her femurs had hairline fractures from the impacts but hadn't shattered. She kept firing, kept advancing. The pirates hesitated. They had just hit both humans with shots that should have killed them. Energy weapons at that range should have burned completely through their bodies. But the humans kept coming. Gangmin reached the first pirate, a species he didn't recognize with 6 legs and natural armor plates. He struck the creature in what he hoped was its center mass, with the butt of his weapon. The impact broke 2 of Gangmin's fingers, but the pirate went down hard, its own armor cracking under the force of the blow. Yuna fired point blank into another pirate, then used her weapon as a club when a 3rd pirate got too close. Her injured legs barely supported her weight, but her skeleton held. Behind them, the Thex officers watched in stunned silence. They had never seen any species continue fighting after taking that kind of damage. The pirates, equally shocked, began falling back. A massive figure appeared at the far end of the corridor. It stood nearly 10 feet tall, wearing powered armor covered in spikes and weapons. Gangmin recognized the design from intelligence briefings. This was a Krill warlord, the leader of the raiding party. "You are the humans," the warlord said, voice amplified through speakers in the armor. "The species with bones inside. I wanted to see if the stories were true." The warlord raised a massive armored fist and activated some kind of crushing mechanism. Gangmin saw energy fields surround the metal fingers, designed to pulverize whatever they grabbed. "Let's test those internal structures," the warlord said, advancing. Gangmin knew he couldn't win a direct confrontation with powered armor. His injuries screamed at him to retreat. Every breath felt like knives in his chest, where his ribs had cracked. But retreating meant giving the pirates access to critical systems. The warlord grabbed Gangmin with one huge hand, lifting him off the ground. The crushing mechanism activated, and Gangmin felt pressure building around his torso. His ribs bent, cracked further, but the cage they formed around his vital organs held. The pain reached levels he had never experienced, but his lungs and heart remained protected behind the barrier of bone. Gangmin still held his weapon. At point-blank range, he fired directly into the gap between the warlord's helmet and chest armor. The projectiles couldn't penetrate the armor itself, but they found the weak point where sections joined. The warlord roared and dropped Gangmin, clutching at the damaged armor section. Gangmin hit the floor hard, more ribs cracking on impact. But he rolled away and forced himself to his feet. Yuna had continued fighting while the warlord was distracted. 2 more pirates lay unconscious at her feet. Blood ran down her legs from the energy weapon burns, but she remained standing, weapon raised. The warlord looked at both humans, bleeding and broken but still in fighting position. Behind them, the Thex officers had rallied, and now added their fire to the fight. The remaining pirates, seeing their leader injured and the humans still standing after impossible punishment, began retreating. "This isn't over," the warlord growled, backing away. "The galaxy will learn what you are. Walking weapons with calcium shields grown inside your flesh. You are monsters." The pirates withdrew, dragging their wounded with them. Within minutes, their ships detached from the station and jumped back into faster-than-light travel, fleeing before coalition reinforcements could arrive. Gangmin finally allowed himself to collapse. Yuna limped over to him, her own injuries threatening to drop her at any moment. The Thex officers stared at both of them with expressions that crossed species barriers clearly. It was awe mixed with fear. "Medical teams are coming," one Thex officer said quietly. "You should both be dead." Those injuries should have killed you within seconds. Our skeletons protected us, Gangmin said through gritted teeth. Every word hurt. They're designed for this. They keep us alive. Designed, the Thex officer repeated. Like weapons. Gangmin didn't have the strength to argue anymore. Medical teams arrived and began treating both humans with techniques hastily adapted for their unusual physiology. The station's sensors had recorded everything, and Gangmin knew the footage would spread throughout Coalition space within hours. Humanity had proven it could take damage that would kill other species. Gangmin wasn't sure if that would help or hurt humanity's case for acceptance. As consciousness faded under medical sedation, he heard the Thex officers talking quietly about the fight, their voices mixing respect with unmistakable fear. The galaxy now knew what humans could survive. That knowledge would change everything. The Grand Assembly Chamber of the Galactic Coalition existed on a scale that dwarfed anything built by humanity. Floating platforms held representatives from 200 species, arranged in concentric circles that rose toward a domed ceiling showing the stars beyond. Ambassador Do Yun stood on the human delegation platform, waiting for her turn to address the assembly. 2 weeks had passed since the pirate attack. Footage of Gangmin and Yuna fighting while absorbing fatal damage had spread across every communication network in Coalition space. Public opinion had fractured dramatically. Some species viewed humans as potential protectors, durable allies in a dangerous galaxy. Others saw living weapons that needed to be contained. The Velen Consortium led the latter group. Their representatives occupied a prominent platform, their gelatinous forms contained in environment suits that pulsed with agitated colors. They had formally proposed the Restriction Act, legislation that would limit human travel, require constant monitoring of human populations, and forbid humans from holding security positions throughout Coalition space. The evidence is clear, the Velen primary representative declared, its voice translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. Humans are biological weapons, engineered by their death world. Their internal calcium frameworks allow them to survive damage that kills other species. They can continue fighting with injuries that should be immediately fatal. This makes them unpredictable and dangerous. Several platforms erupted with sounds of agreement. Du Yan watched the political landscape shifting beneath her feet. Fear was a powerful motivator, and the Velen Consortium had spent 2 weeks carefully cultivating that fear. Ambassador Du Yan of Humanity, the Assembly Speaker announced. You may present your defense against the Restriction Act. Du Yan stepped forward on her platform, which rose slightly to put her at the center of attention. She wore formal attire that blended Korean traditional elements with practical modern design. A subtle reminder of her species' long cultural history. Honored representatives, Do-Yun began, her voice steady and clear. My species does not deny our biology. Yes, we have endoskeletons. Yes, they provide durability that surprises many of you. But durability is not the same as aggression. Strength is not the same as violence. Yet your people use that strength to harm others. A representative from the Crystalline Collective said, We saw the recordings. Your security officers struck pirates with force that shattered armor. In defense of a coalition station, Du-Yun replied. Officer Gang Min and Guard Yuna were protecting coalition assets and personnel. They were doing their duty, alongside coalition security forces who fought equally bravely. Should we be punished for defending our allies? The Velen primary representative pulsed dark red. You speak of allies, but you hide the truth of your biology. Tell this assembly about human developmental stages. Tell them how your species begins life. Du-Yun felt a chill. The Velen had discovered something, and they planned to use it now for maximum political impact. She had no choice but to address it directly. Human infants are born with approximately 270 bones, Du-Yun said. Many of these are made of softer cartilage that gradually ossifies, turning into hard bone as the child grows. Over time, some bones fuse together, resulting in 206 bones in an adult. The assembly erupted in shocked conversation. Platform after platform lit up requesting to speak. You begin with soft internal structures that harden into weapons as you mature? The Crystalline Collective representative demanded. This is a staged weaponization process built into your life cycle. It's development, Duyon said firmly. Not weaponization. Human babies are born soft and fragile because it allows them to pass through the birth canal safely. The gradual hardening of bones is natural growth, not preparation for warfare. The distinction is meaningless. The Velen primary representative said, You have confirmed that every human child undergoes a biological process that creates internal calcium frameworks over years of development. This is systematic, programmed into your very genetics. Du-Yun saw her arguments crumbling. Every fact about human biology could be twisted into evidence of threat when fear drove the interpretation. She needed to change the direction of this conversation. But the Velen Consortium had prepared their attack well. I call for an immediate vote on the Restriction Act, the Velen primary representative declared. Humanity must be contained before their population grows large enough to pose a military threat to coalition security. The Assembly Speaker began the formal voting procedure. Du-Yun watched the displays, seeing vote tallies begin to accumulate. The outcome looked grim. Then alarms sounded throughout the chamber. Security alert, the Assembly Speaker announced. Unauthorized access detected in the quarantine wing of the Medical Research Station. All Assembly members please remain calm while security responds. Du-Yun's communication device vibrated urgently. She checked the message and felt her blood go cold. The alert came from Dr. Hyun-woo, and it contained just 2 words. Found her. 20 minutes later, Coalition security teams breached a hidden laboratory in the Medical Research Station's quarantine wing. The lab existed in records only as storage space, but someone had converted it into a fully functional research facility. Security footage fed back to the Grand Assembly Chamber, displayed on screens for all representatives to see. The laboratory contained medical equipment, biological samples, and in the center of it all, a single human woman strapped to an examination table. Dr. Min Seo, a medical researcher who had gone missing 3 weeks ago during what was supposed to be a routine station transfer. She's alive, Gang Min reported over the security channel. He had left the medical wing against doctor's orders when Hyun-woo discovered the lab's location. Sedated, but alive. The lab is full of human biological samples, bone tissue, marrow cultures, skeletal structure scans. The security team's cameras panned across the laboratory. Containers held what looked like sections of human bone, growing in artificial culture medium. Computer displays showed detailed analysis of human skeletal structure, with annotations in Velen script. They were trying to weaponize it, Dr. Sujin said, her voice crackling over the communication system. She had accompanied the security team as a medical expert. They were trying to grow human bones as armor plating. The cultures show attempts to accelerate the ossification process, to create hardened bone tissue that could be grafted onto other species or used as protective equipment. The Grand Assembly Chamber fell absolutely silent. Every representative stared at the screens showing the illegal laboratory. The implications crashed down like a wave. The Velen Consortium has been conducting unauthorized experiments on a coalition member species, the Assembly Speaker said, voice heavy with shock and anger. This violates 16 different coalition laws regarding medical ethics and species sovereignty. This one, the Lefferning Rabing Kiventing, I have announced to the Assembly. This one, the Dents to stand. This one, the Velen primary representative's gelatinous form cycled rapidly through colors, the physical equivalent of panic. This was not authorized by the consortium leadership. This must be the work of rogue elements within our organization. Rogue elements with access to high-level resources and classified medical information? Du-Yun said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Rogue elements who somehow knew exactly when to kidnap a human researcher during a station transfer? This was systematic, planned, and well-funded. On the screens, security teams found more evidence. files showing months of planning, communications between Velen directors, discussing the potential military applications of human skeletal tissue, financial records proving the consortium had funded the entire operation. The vote on the Restriction Act is hereby suspended, the Assembly Speaker declared. The Velen Consortium representatives are to surrender themselves to coalition security immediately for questioning. All Velen assets and personnel are frozen pending investigation. Du Yun watched as security teams entered the Velen platform in the Assembly chamber. The representatives tried to flee, but there was nowhere to go in the sealed chamber. She felt no satisfaction in their capture, only anger at what they had done to Minseo and relief that the conspiracy had been exposed. Ambassador Du Yun, the Assembly Speaker said, on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, I offer formal apologies for this violation against your species. Dr. Minseo will receive the best medical care available, and those responsible will face justice. Thank you, Du Yun said. But I want more than apologies. I want this assembly to understand something fundamental. The Velen Consortium feared human skeletal structure so much that they tried to steal it, to weaponize it for themselves. They saw something they didn't understand, and reacted with fear and greed. That same fear and greed is what drives the Restriction Act. She looked around at the assembled representatives, making eye contact where possible across species barriers. My people don't want to be feared. We don't want to be weapons. We want to be members of this community, contributing our strengths while learning from yours. Yes, we're durable. Yes, we come from a harsh world, but we're also scientists, artists, explorers, and friends. Judge us by our actions, not by your fears about our biology. The assembly chamber remained quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, platforms began lighting up, not with votes for restriction, but with statements of support. The crisis had revealed something crucial. Fear of the unknown had almost allowed criminals to succeed. Trust, difficult as it was to build, offered a better path forward. The Restriction Act died without another vote being taken. The Velen Consortium faced prosecution and dissolution, and humanity remained in the coalition. No longer seen as weapons waiting to be deployed, but as people who had been victimized by those who feared them. Du Yun felt exhausted but hopeful as the assembly session ended. There would be more challenges ahead, more misunderstandings to overcome. But today, humanity had proven they deserved a place among the stars. Not because of their skeletons, but because of their character. 1 year after the Velen Consortium scandal, the new Coalition Medical Institute opened its doors. The facility occupied a beautiful section of the central station, with windows overlooking the stars and laboratories equipped with technology from 100 different worlds. Its mission statement, carved in 200 languages on the main entrance wall, read simply, "Understanding through knowledge, unity through understanding." Dr. Su Jin stood in her new office, looking out at the stars with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in months. The past year had been difficult, full of investigations, trials, and slow rebuilding of trust. But gradually, the coalition had begun to see humans not as threats, but as people with unique biology that could teach them all something valuable. "Ready for the big day?" Dr. Hyunwoo asked, entering the office with 2 cups of coffee. The human beverage had become surprisingly popular among several alien species, particularly those who appreciated stimulants. "Ready as I'll ever be," Sujin replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Is Trilix here yet?" "Arrived an hour ago and has already reorganized the main laboratory to better efficiency standards," Hyunwoo said with a smile. Some things never change. The mantis-like physician had become an unexpected ally after the initial shock of discovering human skeletal structure. Trilix had spent months studying human biology with genuine scientific curiosity rather than fear. Now the alien served as co-director of the institute alongside Su Jin, a symbol of the cooperation the facility was meant to foster. The opening ceremony began at midday station time. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the institute's main hall. Ambassador Do Yun stood at the front with Trilix and Su Jin, preparing to cut the ceremonial ribbon that would officially open the facility. 1 year ago, Du said to the assembled crowd. Fear and misunderstanding nearly tore the coalition apart. Today, we stand together in a place dedicated to replacing fear with knowledge. The new Coalition Medical Institute will study the diverse physiologies of all coalition members, not to weaponize our differences but to understand and celebrate them. Trilix stepped forward, its four arms moving in a gesture of respect that human researchers had learned meant deep sincerity. I was the first to see human endoskeletons, and my initial reaction was horror. I am not proud of that fear, but I am proud of what came after. I learned. I questioned my assumptions. I discovered that what seemed impossible was simply unfamiliar. This institute exists to ensure others can learn without fear. The ribbon cutting proceeded with applause from the diverse audience. Then the real work of the day began. Scientists and researchers spread throughout the institute's facilities, examining displays and demonstrations about different physiologies. Human skeletal structure occupied one exhibit area, but it was just one among many. In one laboratory, researchers observed a demonstration of human bone marrow function. The crowd gathered around displays, showing how the marrow inside human bones produced blood cells and immune components. Remarkable, a floating jellyfish scientist said, watching the cellular processes on display. Your structural supports also serve as biological manufacturing facilities. This efficiency is extraordinary. Many Earth species evolved multiple functions for the same structures, Sujin explained. Evolution tends to repurpose existing systems rather than building everything from scratch. Our bones provide support, protection, mineral storage, and blood cell production all at once. A young researcher from a species with chitinous armor raised a claw tentatively. Could we learn to modify our own biology? Not to steal human traits, but to understand if our own structures might have hidden functions we haven't discovered? That's exactly the kind of question this institute wants to explore, Sujin said warmly. Understanding one species helps us understand all species better. Biology is diverse, but it follows patterns we can learn from each other. In another laboratory, Trilix presented research on comparative skeletal structures across multiple species. The presentation showed that while human endoskeletons were unusual, they weren't unique. Several coalition species had internal support structures, though none quite as extensive as humans. The research suggested that different environments drove evolution in different directions, each solution valid for its particular circumstances. The key finding, Trilix explained, manipulating holographic displays with precise claw movements, is that there is no single correct way for a body to be structured. External armor, internal frameworks, hydrostatic pressure, magnetic fields maintaining crystalline structures. All are valid solutions to the problem of maintaining physical form. Humans are not aberrations. They are simply one more example of life's creativity. Gang Min and Yuna attended the ceremony, both fully healed from their injuries during the pirate attack. Gang Min's ribs had mended completely, though he carried new scars that would never quite fade. They stood near a display showing the healing process of human bones, complete with detailed scans of Gang Min's own injuries and recovery. "Does it bother you?" asked a young Thex security officer who had come to see the exhibit. "Being displayed like this?" "No," Gang Min said simply. "If showing my injuries helps others understand humans better, then something good came from the pain. That matters. Your durability saved coalition lives," the Thex officer said. "Many of us in security services have studied your tactics now, not to copy them, since our biology is different, but to understand how to work alongside human officers more effectively." Yuna smiled at that. "I've been training coalition security teams. The key is recognizing that different species have different strengths. Thex armor is superior to human bone for stopping direct hits, but human skeletal flexibility lets us absorb impacts differently. Together, we cover each other's weaknesses." The Thex officer made a gesture of respect. "The Krill warlord who attacked your station has been spreading word through the lawless regions. He calls humans the unbreakable ones. Some pirates now avoid areas where human security is posted. Your reputation provides deterrent without violence. That is valuable. Across the Institute, similar conversations happened in dozens of languages. Fear gradually transformed into fascination. Fascination into understanding. Understanding into respect. The process wasn't complete and never would be. Some species would always find human biology unsettling. But the fear had lost its power to divide. In the Institute's medical wing, Dr. Minseo worked with a team of researchers studying how human skeletal repair mechanisms might inspire new treatments for other species. The trauma of her kidnapping hadn't disappeared, but she had chosen to transform that experience into something positive. Her research into bone healing had already led to breakthroughs in understanding how other coalition species could improve their own medical treatments. The Velen tried to weaponize human biology, Minseo explained to a group of medical students. They failed because they approached it with greed and fear. We succeed because we approach it with curiosity and compassion. That's the difference between exploitation and cooperation. The afternoon brought a special moment that had been kept quiet until the ceremony. Ambassador Do-Yun stood in a small medical observation room with a handful of close colleagues. Through the window, they could see a young human woman named Hei-Wan holding a tiny infant. "This is Jae-hoon," Do-Yun said softly. "The first human baby born in coalition space." The infant slept peacefully in his mother's arms, completely unaware of his significance. Several alien physicians stood nearby, monitoring both mother and baby with gentle attention. Trilix had personally overseen the birth, using knowledge gained from months of studying human reproductive biology. "His bones are still soft," Trilix said quietly. "Still forming. Over years, they will harden, will become the strong structure that makes humans so resilient. But right now, he is as vulnerable as any newborn of any species. Life begins fragile, everywhere." Dr. Hyun-woo wiped at his eyes, not ashamed of the tears. "When I first came to the station, when my skeleton was discovered, I was terrified we'd be sent home. That humanity would be rejected by the galaxy. But you stayed," Do-Yun said. "You explained, educated, and eventually earned trust. Now we have this, a human child who will grow up knowing dozens of species, learning hundreds of languages, living among the stars. This is what we fought for." The observation room filled with quiet joy as they watched Jae-hoon wake and yawn, his tiny mouth opening wide. Through the window, alien medical staff cooed over him, with the universal response of adults to infants. A Thex physician gently touched the baby's hand with one massive claw, marveling at how small and soft human babies began life. The opening ceremony concluded with a gathering in the Institute's central plaza. Species mingled freely, sharing food, stories, and questions. Human researchers answered countless questions about skeletal structure, doing so with patience and good humor. Alien scientists shared their own biological marvels, teaching humans about the incredible diversity of life in the galaxy. Gang Min found himself talking with the Krill warlord's former second-in-command, a being who had surrendered to coalition forces after the conspiracy was exposed. The pirate had given evidence against the Velen consortium in exchange for reduced sentencing. "Why did you really attack that station?" Gang Min asked bluntly. The former pirate, whose species had armored plates like overlapping coins, clicked in what the translation device rendered as embarrassment. Said they wanted to test human durability in combat. They wanted footage of humans being injured to use in their political campaign. "We were supposed to hurt you badly, but not kill you." "But you did try to kill us," Gang Min pointed out. "Yes. Once the fight began. Once we saw you continue fighting through injuries that should have dropped you instantly. Fear took over. We wanted you dead, because you terrified us. I am not proud of this, but it is truth." Gangmin considered this. And now? Now I understand that terror came from ignorance. You are durable, yes, but durability is not evil. The Velen manipulated our fear to serve their goals. I was a tool, and I am ashamed I allowed myself to be used that way. What will you do after your sentence is complete? Gangmin asked. I have been offered a position, the former pirate said. Teaching combat tactics at Coalition Security Academy. Apparently, my experience fighting against humans provides valuable perspective. Also, I am under constant supervision, which is appropriate. Gang Min extended his hand in the human gesture of reconciliation. After a moment's hesitation, the former pirate grasped it with a three-fingered claw. The grip was careful, mindful of the differences in their biologies. As evening cycle began, and the stars became more visible through the Institute's windows, Sujin stood with Trilix, watching the crowd. The mantis-like physician made a clicking sound that indicated contentment. 1 year ago, I believed your species represented biological impossibility, Trilix said. Today, I understand that impossibility is simply unexplored possibility. Thank you for your patience while we learned this lesson. Thank you for being willing to learn, Sujin replied. Not everyone could set aside their initial fear like you did. Fear is natural, Trilix said, but intelligence means moving past fear to understanding. That is what separates wisdom from instinct. They watched as Ambassador Do Yun introduced little Jae-hoon to the gathered crowd. Alien and human alike gathered around, marveling at the baby who represented hope for the future. His soft bones would harden over years, becoming the strong framework that had caused so much controversy. But by the time Jae-hoon grew up, perhaps that controversy would be just history, a story of how different species learned to understand rather than fear each other. The new Coalition Medical Institute stood as a monument to that hope. In its laboratories, researchers would continue studying the magnificent diversity of Coalition biology. In its classrooms, students would learn to see differences as opportunities for knowledge rather than sources of threat. And in its halls, friendships would form between species that once viewed each other with suspicion. Humanity had joined the galactic community not by hiding what they were, but by helping others understand it. Their unbreakable skeletons had nearly caused their exile. Instead, those same skeletons became a bridge to deeper understanding of how diverse life could be. As the opening day ceremony ended and the crowd slowly dispersed, Sujin looked out at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, other species with their own biological marvels waited to be discovered. Perhaps some would find human endoskeletons just as strange as the Coalition initially had. But now humanity knew how to respond to that fear with patience, education, and compassion. The galaxy was vast and full of differences. That was what made it beautiful.